All right, we're talking Gilmore Girls, doing here a response to one of my mutuals on here, Lorelai's take. So she did a video, which is actually more of a slideshow, talking about Lorelai and Rory. I got a few things I want to say about it. I'm going to focus on the two slides in the middle here where she made her main arguments. So first one here, she says, Emily tried to shape Lorelai into the perfect daughter, where she lived, who she married, how she behaved. Lorelai, she spent Rory's childhood pushing her toward Harvard without ever asking what Rory actually wanted. Okay, so this is interesting. So when I see this, this gets me thinking about the episode A Deep Fried Korean Thanksgiving, which I rewatched recently this past November, kind of recently. And there's the whole moment towards the end of the episode where, we see how against Lorelai is, against the idea of Rory going to Yale, even considering it as a backup school. Now, this is something that she eventually, calms down on by the end of the episode a little bit, and eventually goes on to, of course, encourage Rory to go to Yale over Harvard when she feels this is the right thing for Rory. So this could lead you to think that, I don't know if anything in the show ever explicitly says this, that Lorelai did possibly push the idea of Harvard on Rory. She doesn't like the idea of Rory kind of having any association with something kind of involving her parents, which is going to be against Rory going to Yale, Richard's alma mater. So, when at a certain point she realized that Rory has a certain degree of academic giftedness, it's going to be like, I can see why it's like either Harvard or Yale, because they're both, these huge Ivy League schools, both there in their own state, Connecticut. You got Princeton a couple states over. But, though those two are right there, so that makes sense. And so you can say in the sense that there's probably a pushing in the direction of Harvard. But Rory seemed to always want to go to Harvard too. There's anything wrong with Harvard. And there was never kind of really any moment in the show where we see Rory necessarily have much of a problem with the idea of going to Harvard. So I do think while there is a certain degree of pushing the Harvard idea onto Rory, I mean, it's more, like I said, more anti-Yale than pro-Harvard. I don't know, like the idea that she just sort of forced it on her without ever asking what she wanted, I don't know if that's totally fair. In the next slide, she says, and when Rory finally made a choice for herself, dropping out of Yale, Lorelai completely shut her out, just like Emily did to her. Now, this is interesting. I was just going and rewatching some of these, and I have somewhat of a disagreement here, too. So, I think, now, obviously, Lorelai, as did most of the people in Rory's life, did, of course, have a very big issue with the idea of Rory dropping out of Yale. I think it was a bit of a, maybe a drastic choice, dropping out of Yale. I think maybe she could have just taken the summer to rethink some things. It was the end of the school year. She maybe could have just taken the 3 months of the summer, figure out what she wanted to do. Maybe just something similar in journalism, like marketing or something like that. There's plenty of things she could have done. But here's the thing. Now, Lorelai did go and shut Rory out. But I think what this has to do is with this feeling of betrayal that she felt that, towards her parents, because she went to them, was like, I need you to back me up on this. And they're like, of course, absolutely, we agree with you. Rory comes all sad, so they feel sorry for giving to it all. And it's like, yeah, sure. You can stay with us. And they had Rory already moving in before Lorelai even shows up to the Friday night dinner where they were going to confront Rory. So she definitely felt this huge level of betrayal from her parents, I think understandably so, regardless of whether or not you agree, with how she went about with everything. And Rory, I think she kind of projected some of that anger that she had towards her parents onto Rory, where I think it was really more about the parents' betrayal that's the issue and not as much about what Rory did, even though she kind of like went behind her back and stuff. And I think Rory, as an adult, does have the right to do what she wants, but I don't think it necessarily would have been a good decision. Maybe so that they could have talked about some more and, to the point where they both could have been okay with it, but that's not how it worked out, and that's fine. And I do think that the show generally does do a very good job at kind of making these characters flawed and three-dimensional in the sense that it has them make these mistakes where you can kind of understand where they're all coming from, even if you don't agree with it all. Now, but like I said, as far as the shutting out, I think there is a level of shutting out, but I think it's a bit different than the way that Emily is. Because, I mean, see, I think what Emily does is that Emily is very much like, I want you to live life the way me and your father do. With Lorelai, it's like, I want you to have the life that I didn't have, which I think is not the best way to go about parenting because it's more just like, they have to be an individual. They have to form their own path. They can't just be doing what you want to do. But when you kind of put it all in the context of the feeling of betrayal and stuff like that, and just wanting Rory to have a good life, I don't know if I consider it the kind of the same level of control and manipulation. And I know that you do, Lorelei, say in one of the comments that it's you're not saying so much that it's the same level, but of like control and manipulation and whatnot. But I don't really think of it as the same thing either. I feel like it's like a different kind that does kind of more come out of a more genuine concern, that involves kind of more communication. I just don't really view it the same way, but that's just my thoughts.